Cindy Ann Blazek was born on February 3, 1962, to James and Jean in Rosetown, Saskatchewan. Youngest of four on a cattle and grain farm, book smart, steady, the kid who'd volunteer before you finished asking. In high school, she did it all: honors, cheerleading, candy striping. Summers in university, she was a care aide at the seniors' home. Families told her parents their loved ones were calmer after Cindy's visits. She chose teaching for the same reason. She just wanted to help. By 1984, degree in hand, she took her first job in Pelican Narrows on Peter Ballantine Cree Nation. 2 years later, she moved to the resource room at Chief Taylor Elementary on Onion Lake Cree Nation near Lloydminster. Saturday night, December 6, 1986, around 2:15 a.m., her boyfriend, RCMP Constable David Greyeyes, called from Pelican Narrows. Mostly yes-no stuff, then I love you. Later, her family learned the bedroom phone cord had been cut. Her brother, Jamie, thinks she wasn't annoyed, she just couldn't say more. Before daylight, violence moved through that house. Investigators believe there were at least 2 attackers. It started in the master bedroom, dragged down the hall, into the kitchen, into the living room. Broad smears on the walls, blood through the carpet and underlay, into the linoleum. Cindy fought hard. Deep defensive cuts on every finger of her right hand, 2 on her left. The pathologist counted 13 stab wounds, 11 to the neck, an artery severed, no smoke in her lungs. No seminal evidence. Afterwards, someone set the house on fire. Around 3 p.m., Sunday, December 7th, firefighters and police found her inside. She was 24. Police charged 2 people, 22-year-old Brian Oliver Perry and a 17-year-old from Lloydminster. A jury first found Perry guilty, but that verdict got tossed because jurors saw material they shouldn't have. The case moved. New trial. June 1988. Acquittal. The judge said the proof wasn't there and criticized a photo lineup. That same year, the youth was tried and acquitted too. Again, not enough to convict. 2 courts, 2 acquittals, no one held to account. What the scene still says is simple and awful. A long fight through the home. Injuries that prove she fought. Medical findings that put death before the fire. The Blazeks didn't go quiet. Jamie drove back to Onion Lake again and again, talking to anyone who'd talk, passing tips to RCMP, just pushing. He and his sister Debbie say they still don't have the full picture of those hours. They want the truth, in order. The questions don't change. Who came into that cul-de-sac? After she was killed, her mom created the Cindy Blazek Memorial Award for the most improved Grade 4 resource room student at Onion Lake and presented the first one with Jamie. One recipient, Priscilla Horse, was murdered in 1997, another loss in the same community Cindy chose to serve. Right now, Saskatchewan RCMP still lists Cindy's homicide as active. They've said sharing more detail publicly won't help. If you know something, anything that fills the gap between midnight and the fire, call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477 or use the P3 Tips app. In a file this old, a small detail can shift everything. Dawn Eva Carisse was born on February 18, 1958. By 43, she was an Indigenous mother of 3 from Kirkland Lake, Ontario, warm, energetic, and a little stubborn in the best way. A blood clot on Christmas Eve, 1991, stopped her heart. She survived, but the brain injury that followed wrecked her short-term memory. Family say she became childlike at times, repeating herself, losing track, needing someone close by. She still talked about becoming a welder. Mostly she just wanted to be with her kids. After she got sick, her husband tried to care for her. It was a lot. 2 young children, 4 and 2, and a partner who suddenly needed round-the-clock help. With guidance from their family doctor, the decision was made to place her at North Bay Psychiatric Hospital about 3 hours away so she'd be safe and watched. Dawn moved in during the early 90s and stayed until 2001. Staff remembered her as witty and friendly and always planning to get back to her children. She even gave herself a nickname, the Running Bear. The hospital kept her on close observation, but she still slipped away. Between 1997 and 2001, she left 9 times, and every time they found her, on the grounds or along Highway 11, sometimes facing the wrong direction, sometimes the right one, it was always about home. Thursday, August 9th, 2001, earlier that day, she'd been in the craft room. An exit door sat about 29 feet away. She was left alone, long enough to go. What rattled the family later was this: her duffel bag and her native status card were also missing, even though personal items were supposed to be locked in a secure vault. Family and advocates have raised a serious concern. A staff member, later convicted in an unrelated homicide case, had access to the secure vault where Dawn's status card was kept. Dawn wouldn't have had access to that room, yet her card vanished the same day she did. Staff didn't call police until the next day, about 16 hours later. Dawn and those belongings were never found. Her case sits inside a larger, troubling pattern. She was one of 6 patients who vanished from that hospital between 1966 and 2010. Former staff have described a place stretched thin, too many patients, not enough staff, and record-keeping that left gaps you could fall through. The hospital opened in 1952, closed in 2011, and the buildings were demolished in 2013. Answers didn't come down with the walls. People did try. North Bay police interviewed staff, family, and friends. Alerts went out to other agencies and to the public. A couple of tips surfaced early, but nothing stuck. Police haven't declared foul play in Dawn's case, and they haven't ruled it out either. Maybe she got lost in the woods by the property. Maybe she caught a ride and something went wrong. Maybe she checked in somewhere under her own name, and privacy rules kept anyone from connecting the dots. Her daughter Sandra kept digging. Through her own research, she learned a man, someone she considers a person of interest, visited her mom around 11 a.m. that morning. At the time, she was told he was still an inpatient. Later, she learned he was actually living in the community and could come and go. Among Dawn's things, Sandra says she found a photo album inscribed to her mother with his name and the nickname, The Prince. It felt personal. She's never shaken the belief that he might know something. Years later, staff who spoke with a private investigator shared a last sighting around 11:30 a.m., not 5 p.m., as listed in the original police report. A shift like that changes where you look and how soon you get there. Sandra has asked the lead detective to interview this person of interest. She says it still hasn't happened. There's been outside help, too. Ellen White, a former private investigator, volunteers on cold cases and shares what she learns on her podcast, Whereabouts Unknown. Listeners have provided tips, and through those responses she learned more about the missing duffel and the status card, both reportedly gone from the vault when Dawn left that last time. Meanwhile, the tools to search have improved. In 2018, a new DNA databank in Canada began comparing missing person profiles with unidentified human remains. A match can happen in the background after submissions are made. Even amateur sleuths look through public profiles to suggest connections. In the first 3 years, 38 matches were made, giving families answers they'd waited on for years. Tips still trickle in. Potential sightings of Dawn have been reported across the country, far more than anything that surfaced in those first months. One video from Brussels, Ontario looked promising, ruled out after local police confirmed the woman was known to them and not Dawn. Another sighting in a Timmins coffee shop turned out to be a professional who proved her identity. False leads frustrate everyone, but they keep the conversation going. some details never fade. Dawn was last seen in a long pink, short-sleeved dress with a white floral print, a button front, and a crisscross drawstring at the back. She wore reddish-brown closed-toe sandals and may have been carrying a duffel. When she ran before, she tended to head for Highway 11 toward Kirkland Lake. She also knew her children's guardians were planning a move to Sudbury, so that direction may have made sense too. Either way, both roads felt like a path back to her kids. Dawn was a loving, vibrant, proud Indigenous woman from the Odanak First Nation. Her case is open, and her family believes it hasn't been treated with the seriousness it deserves. If you knew her, worked at the hospital, or lived nearby back then, anything you remember, even if it feels small, could help. The questions are still here, and her children are still waiting. Dean Kelly Morrison was born on May 27, 1969. At 44, he was in Kamloops, British Columbia, a father of 3, Annie, Edie, and Paz. That fall, most jobs ran along Highway 5A, around Stump Lake, between Kamloops and Merritt. He and his wife had recently separated. Family says he was trying to steady himself, but he felt low. October 22, 2013, Dean's at Stump Lake Ranch. His van won't start. Around 9 a.m., the manager spots him, rough around the edges, wanting to head out. Accounts say he was let go that morning after appearing lethargic and unkempt. A tow is called. He's asked to tidy his work area while they wait. By midday, the tow truck rolls in. No Dean. The manager checks the outbuildings, the yard. Nothing. A little after 1 p.m., the truck leaves. Dean doesn't. He's just gone. About a week passes before the missing person report is filed. Ranch staff scour the property for weeks. In October 2019, search and rescue comes back. Fresh teams, new grids, pushing into gullies and thin timber around Stump Lake. Nothing. Dean called his mother Elizabeth every week. On days off, he stayed with his sister, who was managing anxiety and depression. Elizabeth says the sister gave him Ativan. The manager later told a reporter Dean seemed impaired that morning. His road to Stump Lake wasn't straight. He and his wife once ran a cafe in Merritt. In Langley, he twice put his name forward as an NDP candidate. During the 2013 campaign, he worked for MLA Harry Lawley, then slid into community reporting at the Merritt News, and later the Merritt Herald, briefly as editor. Dean's wallet and personal effects were found in his trailer. No money moved in his bank account after he vanished. Decades earlier, Dean's grandfather vanished, was declared dead, and surfaced 30 years later living on the streets. An uncle disappeared in the 1970s and was found murdered soon after. In the years after Dean vanished, attention stretched across the interior to other disappearances. Luke Neville, 48, was last seen October 9, 2017, around Spence's Bridge, where he lived and worked as a renovation contractor. The next day, his white Ford E250 was found burned on a Forest Service road about 12 miles out. RCMP deemed the case suspicious. A year in, investigators renewed appeals, hoping time might loosen lips. Luke had roots in eastern Canada, years in firefighting with his brothers, and a settled life in Spence's Bridge. 15 months after he was reported missing, his brother Mark flew in from Ottawa to post billboards and stand with RCMP. Police told the family they suspected foul play. A little more than an hour southeast lies the Nicola Valley, where a massive search launched in winter 2019 for 32-year-old Ben Tyner, the new manager at Nicola Ranch. Last seen the afternoon of January 26th, his horse turned up 2 days later on a logging road, fully tacked, rain broken. With temperatures plunging and no sign of his route, the search stood down after 7 days. That spring, RCMP said there was reason to believe criminality was involved, may have been the victim of homicide. Years later, he still hasn't been found. Early questions asked whether these disappearances were connected. RCMP said they looked for links and found none. As of September 2025, none of the three men, Dean Morrison, Luke Neville, or Ben Tyner, has been located. There was a surge of hope near Kamloops in April 2025 when skeletal remains were found on rural land near Greenstone Road in the Pendleton Creek area. In June, RCMP identified them as Jordan Dean Nandi, 27, missing since March 2023. Investigators believe foul play led to his death. He'd been under a court-ordered curfew in Fort St. John, had an active warrant, and had reportedly traveled south with local associates weeks before his family reported him missing. Many locals talk about a darker pattern in that stretch of the interior. More men gone, more questions than answers. Marshall Iwasa, 27, missing since November 2019. His burned-out truck found on a logging road near Darcy. Ryan Provencher, 38, and Richard Skur, 37, last seen July 17, 2019, found dead a month later, with RCMP saying criminality was involved. Ryan Stuka, 20, last seen February 17, 2018, at a Kamloops area ski resort. Here's what matters: if you worked at or visited Stump Lake Ranch in October 2013, if you drove 5A that morning, if a rumor ever made you uneasy, call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Speak to what you know, however small. Silence built this story. Your detail could change it. James Gregory Lee was born on July 29, 1992. Everyone called him Jamie. He grew up a good-looking kid, full of energy and easy smiles. At 19, he was living just 4 blocks from his parents in Grand Prairie, Alberta. Most nights he still came home for supper, a little TV, and the comfort of routine. He wasn't in trouble, wasn't hanging around a bad crowd. He was in welding school, planning to make a career of it. Most mornings his mom drove him to work and picked him up after, even though he could have walked. That was just their rhythm. In 2011, his father's health was failing because of a rare kidney disease. On September 3rd, Jamie finally got good news. His mom had been approved to donate a kidney, a life-saving match. His parents told him as they drove home from the ICU in Edmonton. Later that day, Jamie called after work, excited. He was heading out for a last-minute camping trip with friends, lifted by the good news. The group went to McLeod Flats Campground, also called Smoky Flats. It was familiar ground, a mile-long dirt road leading to a river spot where local kids often camped. That dry year, the river was so low, you could drive straight onto what was usually an island. That weekend, hundreds of young people filled the area. By night, the party was in full swing. Jamie had a lot to drink. Friends later said he didn't seem himself. Still down about his dad, even though the transplant news should have been a lift. Near dawn, Jamie said he wanted to go home. He climbed into his Jeep with the keys. His friends, not wanting him to drink and drive, pulled him out. In the scuffle, he hit his head hard on the steel frame of the driver's door. He yelped, insisted he was fine, then, angry and amped, walked off into the bush sometime between 4:30 and 5 a.m. He was never seen again. At 5:30, his friends grew worried and started looking. By chance, at 6 a.m., a specialized search and rescue team arrived at Smoky Flats for training, a complete fluke, and immediately joined in. For more than a month, volunteers and officials combed the area, grid teams on foot, horses, aircraft, even canoes along the river. The river was checked by boat, but with levels so low that year, drowning seemed unlikely. Searchers found some of Jamie's belongings, his cigarettes, a piece of his medical ID card, and a first aid certificate with his name. About a mile from the campsite, those items were lying on a dirt road. His mom later explained he might have gotten frustrated when he realized his lighter was still in the Jeep, and he might have thrown the cigarettes down. The terrain was difficult. Old logged ground, thick with deadfall. Some parts of the search were frustrating. Witnesses said RCMP tried a canine once, then put the dog away because of too many people. The family brought in private canine teams. One dog followed Jamie's scent through the campground, across the river, into the bush, and then, strangely, up a tree. The handlers said the dog stopped and looked up, something rarely seen. On the far side of the tree, the scent picked up again and led to a gravel pit 3 miles away. There, on a small mound, searchers found a single, clear shoe impression. Just days before, Jamie had bought new Adidas sneakers. They were a size 13, with a distinctive outsole. The store confirmed only 2 pairs in that size had been sold in town. The print was very likely his. A second dog began at the gravel pit, tracked the scent further, and stopped at a busy road, suggesting he may have been picked up by a vehicle. Weeks later, a tip surfaced. A red logging truck had pulled up to the volunteer search table along Highway 40. The driver, described as about 30 with shoulder-length blonde hair, said he'd picked up a young man the morning after Jamie disappeared. He noted the boy had blood on him and dropped him off in Grand Cache, 2.5 hours away. Jamie's mom tried to chase it down. She says RCMP weren't interested. She tracked the truck, photographed it, and learned it had changed hands just weeks after Jamie vanished. The opportunity to question that driver was lost. At home, the change was immediate. Jamie had been the son who always stopped in for supper, who was always around. Suddenly, the chair he favored sat empty. The town rallied. 200 searchers a day, even staff from the local museum where his mother worked. But as weeks stretched into months, no answers came. RCMP eventually polygraphed all of Jamie's friends from that night. According to them, every one of the boys passed cleanly, and their accounts stayed consistent. Jamie's case went quiet for years, officially inactive after 2016. Recently, it was transferred to the County of Grand Prairie RCMP, where a new investigator has started fresh. Jamie was over 6 feet tall, with brown hair and hazel eyes. He was last seen in blue jeans, a brown hoodie, and those distinctive size 13 Adidas running shoes. If you have information, even something that feels small, please call 1-800-KID-TIPS. Molly Anita Margaret Justice was born circa 1927. By 15, she lived on Brett Avenue in Saanich, British Columbia, just east of Swan Lake, where the Canadian National Railway grade cut a quick line home. It was wartime, cold air, and a hint of snow. January 18, 1943, Molly steps off the 5:50 p.m. bus after her shift at General Warehouse Ltd., a garment factory where a teenager's already trusted as head seamstress. The driver watches her stride into the dark. She doesn't like that walk along the tracks, but the shortcut is the shortcut, and it points straight home. She never makes it. A couple leaving Swan Lake spots blood-stained packages. Officers follow the trail to the rail bed, what's now the Galloping Goose, and find her face down in the snow. Her body's still warm. 2 heavy blows to the head. Nearly 24 stab wounds from a small blade. Her purse and a ring are gone. There's no sexual assault. Saanich police bring in Victoria and provincial officers, plus the Army's Provost Corps. They retrace her route, off at Carey Road, along University to Douglas, over to Vernon, down the embankment by the bridge, then onto the CNR grade. She's killed at the next crossing where the tracks meet Darwin Road. Detectives even try hot water to free clues, then stop before they wash them away. A municipal reward brings silence. 2 weeks later, Swan Lake gives up new leads. Under an upside-down bucket, Molly's purse and a lighter engraved RL. No usable prints. Nearby, men's tan capeskin gloves, soft full lining, snug elastic wrists ringed by 2 colored bands. Detectives canvass shops. 96 pairs sold between October and December 1942. Clearing them becomes a door-knock grind. 1,700 interviews just to eliminate the first 30. 81 accounted for by early March. Then on May 16, 1943, an 11-year-old girl was sexually assaulted by 15-year-old Francis James Hulbert, who went by Frank and sometimes used the last name Pepler. During the assault, he threatened the girl, saying he was going to do to her what he did to Molly. He was arrested the same day and convicted for the assault 2 weeks later. He was questioned about Molly but denied being responsible for her murder and instead pointed investigators to his co-worker, 49-year-old William Mitchell, saying Mitchell had confessed. Mitchell was arrested and tried for the murder. However, due to the lack of evidence and a workplace alibi placing him at work on the night of the murder, he was acquitted. 24 years later, in 1967, Hulbert's name resurfaced, not for a murder charge, but for perjury, related to what he'd said as a youth during the Mitchell proceedings. Over the years, Hulbert reportedly admitted on multiple occasions to murdering Molly, but he was never charged with the homicide. Instead, he received 4.5 years in prison for perjury. Over the years, rumors swirled that he avoided a murder charge because he was related to then Deputy Attorney General Eric Pepler, but a 1996 review found no evidence to support that claim. The review did not declare a perpetrator, though police have long indicated they believe Hulbert was likely the killer. Unfortunately, evidence recovered at the time, such as hair reportedly found under Molly's fingernails and a fingerprint on items from her purse, was not retained. Investigators did find an unlabeled brown-handled knife in the evidence decades later and had it tested, but no blood was found on the blade. It remains unclear whether this was the actual murder weapon. It's now been over 82 years since Molly was murdered, and as of September 2025, the case remains unsolved.